Do you know which kinds of assets wealthy people tend to avoid in retirement so their money does not quietly lose value over time? That is because many assets today lose value the longer you hold on to them, or they come with a whole chain of costs that many people do not notice at first. Meanwhile, when wealthy people retire, they need assets that are simple, easy to use, able to generate income, and most importantly, can be turned into cash quickly whenever needed. And that is also why they are extremely careful about what they buy. So what kinds of assets do wealthy retirees almost always stay away from? In today's video, I am going to reveal what those assets are, so you can better understand what should be avoided and what is truly suitable for a lighter, safer retirement life. But before that, let us take a look at how wealthy people think when they retire through Bobo's story. How wealthy people think about retirement. Like everyone else, Bobo worked for many years, and after a lot of effort, Bobo managed to save a pretty decent amount of money. Then Bobo started thinking about retirement and what to do with that money, so it could keep bringing in more and help create a more secure life. After going back and forth, Bobo began focusing on assets. Bobo thought that if he bought some big valuable asset and kept it close, he would feel much more secure. But then Bobo suddenly realized something. If he put a huge amount of money into it, would he be able to get that money out right away in an emergency? Or would he have to wait to sell it, wait for a buyer, wait on paperwork, and go through a long process before turning it back into cash? Because some things look very valuable when you first buy them, but the longer you hold them, the more their value slowly fades. And by the time you sell, the money you get back may not even match what you originally put in. That was when Bobo began to understand that choosing assets for retirement cannot be based only on the feeling of security when buying them. What matters more is whether that asset keeps your money flexible, whether it can be turned into cash easily when needed, and how well it holds its value over time. 6. Types of assets wealthy retirees never buy. Number 1. Vacation real estate. After thinking for a long time, Bobo came up with another idea. He told himself, maybe I should buy a vacation home. Later in retirement, I could go there once in a while, take a walk, enjoy a change of scenery, and have somewhere to escape to when life feels dull. The more he thought about it, the more reasonable it sounded. A house by a lake, or somewhere quiet near the beach, would not only feel like a major asset, but also like a ready-made place to enjoy old age. But then Bobo remembered something Lulu had mentioned before. Lulu had bought a house near the beach. At first it sounded great because Lulu could go there for a few days on weekends or during free time. When buying it, Lulu thought the same thing many people do. A place like that would help her enjoy life while also holding a valuable asset for retirement. But after a while, Lulu realized it was not that simple. Most of the time, the house just sat empty. Meanwhile, every year, she still had to keep paying for it. Property taxes, insurance, repairs whenever something broke. And when a house sits unused for too long, it starts to wear down. That meant the house was not making Lulu any extra money. In fact, it was quietly pulling more money out of her pocket year after year. That was when Bobo understood why many wealthy retirees rarely buy vacation homes or resort property. The problem is that you use it very little, but you still have to lock a huge amount of money into it. That money just sits there inside the house, while you keep spending more to maintain it. That is why many wealthy people prefer renting vacation places instead of owning them. Want to spend a few days at the beach? Rent a place near the water. Want to head to the mountains? Rent a cabin for a few days. Then come home, enjoy the trip, and avoid carrying the burden of taxes, upkeep, and a large amount of money tied up for too long. Put simply, vacation homes are easy to love in your imagination. But when you look more closely, they're the kind of asset you use very little, keep paying for constantly, and leave your money stuck in one place for far too long. That is why wealthy retirees usually think very carefully about them, and most choose to stay away. Number 2. Luxury cars or constantly upgrading cars. When Bobo saw that a vacation home tied up too much money and came with too many ongoing costs, he shifted in another direction. He thought maybe buying a car made more sense. In retirement, having a personal car would be much more convenient. Want to go grocery shopping? Easy. Need to see a doctor? No problem. Rain or shine, life would feel much easier. The more he thought about it, the more practical a car seemed compared with a vacation home. And the more he thought, the more he wanted a really nice car. Bobo imagined himself driving a luxury car with softer seats, better sound insulation, and an overall feel that was simply more enjoyable. After years of working hard, rewarding himself with a car like that felt very tempting. But when he looked more closely, Bobo realized a luxury car does not only cost a lot up front. The purchase price is already high, and after that come insurance, maintenance, repairs, and replacement parts. On top of that, cars lose value pretty quickly over time, so the longer you keep one, the less money it really holds. There is also another trap. Once you start buying cars, it is easy to keep upgrading from one to the next. A newer model looks better, feels better, seems more impressive, and suddenly you want to switch. And every time you do, you lose another large chunk of money, because the old car has already depreciated, while the new one starts a whole new cycle of spending all over again. Little by little, retirement savings begin to shrink. So Bobo decided to choose a car that truly fit his needs, one that was durable, safe, and comfortable enough to use for many years. That way, he still had a convenient way to get around and stay comfortable in any weather, while his retirement money stayed protected instead of quietly disappearing into flashy short-term pleasures. Number 3. Antiques or old collectibles. By this point, Bobo had started to realize that large, valuable assets usually come with plenty of hidden costs. So he began looking in another direction. He noticed one type of asset that sounded especially unique: antiques. In his mind, this was the kind of asset that could age right alongside him while still holding its value, maybe even becoming more valuable with time. But after looking into it more carefully, Bobo saw the problem. If he suddenly needed money for medical bills or even just to buy bread, could he take that antique and trade it for something useful right away? The answer was clearly no. Antiques are basically frozen when it comes to liquidity. To turn one into cash, Bobo might have to spend months finding a buyer, hiring an expert to authenticate it, and accepting a low offer if he needed money fast. To Bobo, a real retirement asset should be like a fresh loaf of bread. It should be there when you need it. Not like an antique that you can only sit and stare at while your stomach is empty. And that was not the end of it. Bobo realized that owning antiques was really just buying extra work for himself. Instead of enjoying a peaceful retirement, he would have to worry about preservation. A dehumidifier to protect the paint. A security system to prevent theft. Expensive insurance costs. None of those things make money. In fact, they quietly eat away at the savings Bobo worked so hard to build. Finally, Bobo looked at the market risk. The value of antiques does not come from business performance. It depends on other people's taste, and taste is fragile and constantly changing. If 20 years from now people no longer care about ceramics or oil paintings, Bobo's treasure could end up meaning very little. That was when Bobo understood that antiques can be an interesting hobby, but they should never be the financial backbone of retirement. And Bobo certainly did not want to spend his retirement years acting like a guard for a collection of silent objects. Number 4. Whole life insurance. After firmly crossing antiques off the list because they were too hard to turn into cash, Bobo found himself drawn to another option that sounded much safer and more thoughtful while researching different kinds of assets: whole life insurance. The salesperson told Bobo it was the perfect solution. It was not risky like antiques, did not require upkeep, and offered both protection and savings for future generations. But Bobo felt this policy was like a box for storing bread, while the insurance company was like a set of octopus arms. It promised to keep the bread safe, but quietly took crumbs from it every single day. For example, Bobo puts 10 loaves of bread into the box, and the agent promises that if something happens to him, he will receive 100 loaves. And if he stays safe, then 20 years later he will get his bread back with a little interest. It sounded like a great deal, but Bobo still felt something was off. So he asked himself, what exactly happens to my 10 loaves during those 20 years? That was when he saw the problem. The box was not just holding his bread for him. A lot of that bread was also being used to cover all kinds of costs. Operating costs, management costs, fees buried in the contract that were hard to spot at the beginning. So the 10 loaves he put in were not simply growing larger. Part of them was being taken out to pay those expenses, which meant what was left could actually be less than what he put in at the start. That was exactly what made Bobo uneasy. It was hard to see where his money really was. How much was for protection, how much was for growth, and how much had already been taken away in fees. And there was more. If he needed money urgently later, that money would not always be ready to access right away. He might have to wait. He might face penalties, and when he finally got it, the amount could be much lower than expected. At that point, Bobo understood something clearly. Protection is one thing, growing money is another. When you mix both into the same product, everything becomes harder to track, harder to understand, and less flexible when you actually need the money. So Bobo felt it made more sense to separate them. Use one tool for protection, and put the money meant for growth somewhere simpler and easier to follow. Put simply, whole life insurance can feel reassuring at first. But when you look closer, it is the kind of place where money gets tied up for a long time. The inside costs are hard to see clearly, and access is limited when you need cash fast. Number 5. Speculative stocks. Bobo also kept hearing people around him talk about stocks that were suddenly soaring. And when retirement is on your mind, of course you want your money to grow faster. But looking at prices constantly jumping up and down made Bobo deeply uneasy. To him, putting a big chunk of money into speculative stocks was like throwing all the flour saved for old age into the sky and hoping the wind would blow back more bread instead of making it disappear. This kind of asset is not really driven by the quality of the business or strong fundamentals. It often moves on rumors and the unstable emotions of the crowd. When everyone gets excited, people start believing more bread is on the way. But the moment the crowd changes its mind, everything can fall just as fast. And Bobo knew that when retirement is close, time is no longer long enough to easily rebuild if the savings of a lifetime are badly damaged. At that stage, the priority should be protecting the bread already in hand, not throwing it all into something where one bad loss could take away the peace of an entire retirement. Instead of staying up at night staring at a phone screen and worrying about tomorrow, the wiser choice is to put money into something that creates steady cash flow, like owning a bread recipe that keeps earning money again and again. A good night's sleep next to a stable oven is worth far more than the stress of watching numbers jump around for no clear reason. If insurance can trap your cash flow, then speculative stocks can act like a storm that wipes out years of hard work. Staying out of speculation and holding on to real bread instead of chasing an imaginary bakery on a screen is one of the most solid ways to protect a retirement plan. Number 6. Jewelry made of gold, silver, and gemstones. Now that Bobo had decided to avoid the storm of speculative stocks, he saw Mimi showing off diamond rings and shiny gold necklaces. Mimi believed this was the best way to preserve wealth because jewelry never loses value, can be worn for beauty, and can always be sold quickly when needed. But Bobo realized that jewelry is the kind of asset that loses money the moment you buy it. Trading 1,000 loaves of bread for a gemstone is like walking out of the store and finding that the stone is now worth only 700 loaves. The missing 300 loaves have already gone to labor costs, brand markup, and the shop owner's profit. Instead of making more bread, the item quietly eats into Bobo's flour reserve from day one. Even worse, jewelry brings worry. If a bread recipe lives in your head, nobody can steal it. But if you wear gold, silver, and gemstones on your body, then suddenly you need a safe, security cameras, and constant caution about theft or robbery. A real retirement asset should bring peace of mind, not turn its owner into someone living in daily anxiety. And when Bobo truly needs cash, selling jewelry is usually disappointing and difficult. Buyers inspect every scratch and flaw to push the price down, so the bread he gets back is often far less than what he paid. To Bobo, it made far more sense to keep money in a system that could keep selling bread and producing fresh cash flow every day than to hold on to something shiny that made his wallet thinner, his mind heavier. After looking into all 6 types of assets, Bobo finally saw his retirement plan much more clearly. For Bobo, retirement is about choosing what brings real freedom and real usefulness to life. Instead of becoming a servant to assets that need guarding, worrying, or endless waiting for distant promises, Bobo chose to own ovens that produce steady cash flow and smart ideas that keep growing on their own. The final goal is simple: a bag that always has bread in it and a mind that feels completely at ease. Keeping money flexible and keeping life light may be the best investment of all. Once Bobo let go of the burden of the wrong assets, he was finally ready for a truly rich old age, rich in money, rich in time, and fully free.